Hello and welcome back to the John Smith channel. I always feel like a crappy YouTuber when I start these videos. I never know what to say. I'm just like, anyway. So, okay. Well, at any rate, welcome back. Today, we're going to just kind of rehash what we've been doing. And then we're going to work on these 4 images, okay? So I've got these 4 images. The links are below. You can grab them from, they're just links from the website. So you want to just drag them into Photoshop, and then you'll be able to follow along. Okay, I'm going to start with this image. First, let's just to reiterate what we've been doing. Remember, the first thing that we do whenever we open an image into Photoshop is duplicate it. Now again, there's 4 ways to duplicate. The first is Control or Command J on your keyboard. And that will give me a duplicate or a copy layer right here on my layers panel, okay? The other way is to drag that down to the plus sign. Plus sign's down here, okay? Or we can simply right click and then click duplicate layer. And that will give us a copy layer. Now remember, we do this so that when we edit the image, it's not editing the original, it's editing a copy, okay? And then again, just to reiterate, you always want to work on your top layer. By default, if you're working on something below and your top layer is opaque, you won't see any of the edits that you're making. Okay, so last week we focused on the Move tool, which allows us to move objects around. We focused on the selection tools, okay? Now, the selection tools, again, just to reiterate, allow us to make a selection. And then they allow us to edit, or rather they help us define the area that we're editing, okay? So I know we use kind of silly examples just like squares and things like that, but just to show you, I mean, this does have a very practical application as well. You know, we can, edit skin tone here. Like if we wanted to get rid of this rainbow, right, we could grab our brush here, and eventually, we can get rid of that lens flare moving across our model's neck here, okay? And that helps it so that when we do edit, it doesn't edit her shirt or her hair, right? We're just able to, excuse me, I am at a terribly low opacity, so let's try it like this now. And, sorry, just some housekeeping things off screen. Maybe. We'll just keep going there. Okay. All right. So, we can use this practically, right? Selection tools are there for us to help us make differences and changes to the image exactly where we want them to be and nowhere else. Right. Okay. So here's just a quick before and after, right? I didn't really do anything good there, just to show you that I didn't affect the shirt. Okay. Sorry, terrible example after all. So we'll start over again. Command J, okay? All right, so selection tools allow us to define the area that we want to work. And then I just want to move down the list here. We've got the crop tool, the eyedropper, and then we're going to work with these 3 tools today, okay? The crop tool just simply allows us to edit the size of our canvas. And when I say the canvas, I'm talking about the image out here on this black-ish screen here, okay? So if I hit C on my keyboard or go to the crop tool, I can change the size of my canvas. I can scale it, okay? Or I can just move it independent as I like, right? That allows us to make our final print or our final image a certain size. So now I've changed the size of my canvas to just be this sort of portrait shot, okay? I don't like that, so I'm gonna hit Command Z to undo. All right, that's the crop tool. Next up, we have the eyedropper tool. Remember on Thursday, when we looked into the color picker, right? The color picker, we select the 2 squares here, then we select our color, and click OK, and then our brush will then color in that color, right? Okay, so what the eyedropper does is it allows us to set our foreground color, which is the one on top there. It allows us to set our foreground color with the eyedropper. So if I click that, then wherever I go, I'm clicking and holding now, I can sample the colors on the screen to try and match them. Okay? Just a nice way to grab very precise colors. Okay, now to the important tools today. These are what we call our basic healing brushes or our basic healing tools. We use them for object removal or blemish fixing, things like that, okay? So they are all very similar, these three. The first is called the spot healing brush. The second is called the healing brush. And then this is called the patch tool, okay? Now let's read the blurb. The spot healing brush removes marks and blemishes. You can see, and it gives you a little GIF there of what's going on, okay? Now let's try this tool and see how they're different, because you can see that they're very similar. This one just has a little, almost like a selection there. This one does all the work for us, okay? So I'm going to zoom in here, which I can do by holding down Option and zooming on my mouse. And I am going to just click and brush over that little cherry blossom flake. Then I'm going to do the same here. Okay? And Photoshop, what it's doing is it's grabbing, or rather it's saying, we're telling it, hey, I want to remove this. And then it's looking around exactly what you're trying to remove. And it's saying, okay, let's blend some of that stuff together. Okay? So here we've got this petal on her woven shirt here, sweater thing. Woven shirt. Okay? And I'm just going to go and do this across all of those. And because we have patterns around it, it's just going to lift that off. It's going to say, I'm telling Photoshop, this is what I want to remove. And then Photoshop is going to go look around and it's going to say, okay, what's in this area that's really similar? And then it's going to fill what I've told it to remove in with what it thinks is similar. She's got some weird like specks on her chest. Let's maybe get rid of those. Okay, this is also good for removing stray hairs. Okay, we could even maybe tackle that necklace. And then we'll try this. See if it works. I don't think it will. Hey, it worked really well. Worked well enough. You can still see a little hint of what was once there, but we can go over that again and smooth things together. Okay. Anyway, sort of moving on, sorry. Let's get rid of the rest of these cherry blossoms. And whenever you've got a pattern or texture like hair, it does a pretty okay job. And that's okay, that's passable. You know, at first glance, you're not gonna notice that. This will be a little bit difficult, right? Because we're going to hair, we're going to the sweater, and we're also touching a little bit out onto her skin. And it discolored it a little bit. It grabbed from up here and painted in that green, but that's okay. Let's get this one. Let's get this one. Okay, and we ruined the theme of the image, but that's okay. She's got a little one kind of floating there, maybe one in her hair out here. Pretty good. Okay, right. Okay, so that is our healing brush. Okay, we tell Photoshop what we want removed, and Photoshop does the work for us. Okay, that's our first image. Let's go to our second one here. Okay, and let's kind of continue our theme. Remember to duplicate your image by hitting Command J. And here we've got what resembles Goblin Valley. If it's not Goblin Valley, I don't know where it is, but we've got all these rocks, and I think they're called hoodoos, which we can try and get rid of using our spot healing brush. So let's first just try and tackle one of these boulders here. Okay, and again, we're telling Photoshop what we want removed. We let go, and then Photoshop looks around and it says, okay, I think you want that removed and you want it to look like something that's around it. Okay, let's try that one. Let's try this one. Let's try this one. And we'll just kind of work through these, okay? Let's see about this big one over here. Kind of wonder. Did okay. Try these. You know, you can just kind of play around with this as you like. Okay, you can even get rid of the dude, I guess, if you really wanted to. It's really no big difference. Okay, and we can get rid of these in the foreground, get rid of this. Okay, so where we're going to use this practically, obviously, is in things like smoothing skin, removing, you know, acne, removing discolorations of skin. Like if they got red, splotchy skin, we can tackle it that way. You know, we can even, you know, get rid of some of these things on the horizon of this image of, again, what I assume is Goblin Valley. I didn't check before I downloaded. Now, I'm going to get a little ambitious here. Let's see if we can hit this big chunk here with one brush stroke. Not really hopeful, but we'll try. I think that was too far to go that down there, but let's see. Wow, worked really well. Okay. Well enough. You know, it's obviously detectable, but you know, it's okay. And again, you can go over these things more than once. And you know, let's check out our before and after. So we just removed all those using just one tool, which is our spot healing brush. Very, very good tool if you're in a rush and you don't want to sample areas that are close by. Okay, so there we go. Not bad. Lots of fun. So we'll delete this, and I will close that. Let's go over here. Okay, so let's look at another tool. Let's look at what's called the healing brush. Okay, so again, lives right next door. It's just below it. It's one down. And this one says it repairs imperfections using pixels from another part of the image. So this one is not smart, so to speak. Okay, this one we have to define the area that we want to replicate or heal. Now, on this image, I've got all these little black spots, you know, gum from the ages on the floor here, and we're just going to kind of clean this up using this tool, okay? Now, it says on the blurb there, it says using pixels from another part of the image. Now, what does that mean? How do we do that? Well, on your keyboard, you'll see the Option key. And when you click the Option key using this tool, you'll see that this appears. It's a little target. Okay, so as long as you're holding it down, it will target that. And what that's going to allow me to do is very specifically say, I want my image to look, what I'm going to replace, I want to look like this. So I hold down Option and then I click. And you see how it's repeating those things there. Okay? So I sampled that by holding down Option and clicking, and then I replaced it with that. And then Photoshop kind of does a little bit of healing as well, where it tries to preserve the color but remove the texture, or replicate the texture rather. Let's do it on this one too. Now this one's a little tricky, right, because it's halfway in the shade. So I'm going to make sure that where I sample is also halfway in the shade. So I hold down Option, and then I click, and then I'm going to sample around here. Okay, I'm going to go over it one more time to try and get the color right. Okay, and now we can just kind of do the same thing again. We can hold down Option and click. And you see what happens is that it samples that area, and then it tries to stay what's called aligned, so it stays next to, I think I made it worse there. No, yeah. It stays in the same position relative to where you're coloring, okay? Or filling in, rather. So if I want to fill this in, you see how it stays exactly in the same spot and proportional to where I move. So if I move left, the sample moves left, okay? If I move left, it stays with me left or right or whatever, okay? Let's get, there's a handful more here. Let's get this big one over here. So I'm going to Option and click, and then I'm going to sample. You know what I just realized is I forgot to duplicate this image like an idiot. So this is called destructive editing, and this is not good. We don't want to do this, but just like me, you will forget from time to time, and that's okay. It's okay, especially on images that we don't really care about. Thought there was one more up here. Maybe not gum, but just a little discolored spot. A big rock there. Let's get rid of that. And then let's do this one in the corner just for fun again. It's all for fun, always. Sweet. Okay, now I wish I could do it before and after, but here's what I'm going to do. Okay, there's our before and after. Okay, real fun, right? Great tool. A little bit more, I'll say precise than the spot healing brush. It requires more of you to make it look good. Okay, last but not least, let's look at what's called the patch tool. Okay, I love the patch tool. It's a very useful tool, and we do it in conjunction also with the brush tool occasionally. I'm going to try this. This is the first time I've tried editing this image, so bear with me if it's rough. There's usually 2 steps involved when using the patch tool, but we will try it first without, okay? So you'll remember the lasso tool here. The lasso tool allows me to make a freehand selection, okay? What the patch tool does is it allows me to make a freehand selection. Again, okay, freehand selection, so I'm defining the area. But then what it does is it allows me to look at this selection that I've made and say, this is a problem. And I want it to make it look like something that's not a problem, okay? So what that means is I'm going to click, and then I'm going to drag it, and then I'm going to put it where I want it replaced with. So in this case, what's on the right is what I want removed. What's on the left is what I want it to look like. Then I'm going to let it go, and then I'm going to hit Command D, and then it's gone. You can still see the shadow here, and that's what I was talking about when I was saying that we can use it with the brush. Let me show you what that looks like, okay? So I'll use the brush, and then I'll use my eyedropper, and I'll sample this gray here, and then I'll go back to my brush, and I will just make this intentionally discolored, but similar enough. Then I'm going to bounce back to my my patch tool, and now it's not going to try, well it did, it's not going to try and preserve the red or the black of the shadow. I meant for it to preserve sort of the gray of the cement. Let's try it one more time, and I'm just going to use a lower opacity. I'm just going to kind of keep things there, and I'm going to actually add to my selection here just a bit right there. Okay, I'm going to go back to my patch tool, and we're going to drop it, and that's pretty dang good. Okay, so here's our B&A, before and after. Okay, so I mean, unless you knew that someone was there, it would just look like a discoloration in the concrete, right? So those are our big 3 tools that we're going to work with this week. To introduce them today, we're talking about 1, 2, 3, one more time, right? Spot healing brush. Spot healing brush will allow us to, allows Photoshop to do all the heavy lifting for us, right? So we just color on the area that we want removed, like this. And then we let Photoshop look around and say, yep, we'll replace it with what's similar. And it works okay. Obviously, you can see that each of these tools works better in different circumstances. For example, the spot healing brush didn't work as well as the patch tool here, okay? Let's try the spot healing brush on this one. I have a feeling it's going to work really well. Sure enough, it does. Okay? You can live your life using the spot healing brush and be okay 99% of the time. There's our 1%. You see how the shadow didn't jive there. So I'm going to hit undo and just kind of bump up next to it, okay? Great. So again, spot healing brush worked great on that, okay? Now let's try using the patch tool on this one and see what we get, okay? So I'm going to circle this, and then I'm just going to move it over here. It works pretty well. Okay, feeling good. Okay, it's doing a pretty dang good job. Let's try that giant selection that the spot healing brush didn't have a whole lot of trouble with. Let's see how she goes. Maybe right there. Okay, I would again, I think I'd give the nod to the spot healing brush on that one. But it looks okay. Genuinely looks just fine. It's very passable. Okay, so we will use a combination of these tools all week this week. I think this is as much as I'm going to do this week. We might do a little bit more depending on how well you guys do with these on Monday and Tuesday. Okay, let's maybe try some other tools on this one. So we've got, let's try the the healing brush. So this one again, we're going to have to sample our area, holding down Option, clicking. Okay, looks fine. It really looks fine. Less fine there. Let's see about the patch tool. Right there. Let's see about the patch tool. Patch tool definitely better there. Let's try the patch tool on this one on her jacket. Very bad selection. Add to that real quick. Ooh, let's see. Probably closer to this, I think. There we go. Patch tool works great once again. Okay, like I say, I really like the patch tool. It's one of my favorites to use for just general, moving of objects. Like for example, if we got rid of, what I assume is a person back here. Usually these sites are full of people at this time of year because they only bloom for a couple weeks, or a week even. Let's try that. So when you run it to the edge, not so good. Okay. So good job. Hopefully we've got a nice, good introduction to these tools. Hopefully Photoshop's starting to feel less scary. When we sort of break it down into things like just tools, settings, layers, and adjustments, it starts to make a little bit more sense. So hopefully you're not starting to be more and more, or you're getting less and less lost every time we crack open the app. Hopefully that's the case. Let's see how this goes. It's okay. Yeah, not bad. Okay. Anyway, that's it for this one. Make sure you're following along with everything we're doing in class. If you have any troubles, just give me a call. Don't give me a call. Why would I say that? Shoot me an email. That's always the best way to go. jsmith@murrayschools.org. Have a great day, a great week. Talk to you later.